The queen is a time traveler who decisively returned to her original world after giving birth to a son. The crown prince wailed incessantly, prompting the emperor to reluctantly place him under my care. Henceforth, I devoted myself to his nurturing, instructing him in the delicate art of balancing the courtiers and eliminating the son of the consort, ultimately aiding him in ascending to the throne. To my astonishment, the queen unexpectedly returned. Fearing that I might vie for the position of Empress Dowager with a time traveler, he conspired against me, accusing me of having an illicit affair with the guard, and paraded me naked through the streets under the pretext of disrupting the harem. Amidst the cacophony of insults, I bit my tongue and took my own life. Upon my rebirth, I gazed upon the crown prince, who was on the verge of tears, and let out a cold laugh. "Your own mother has abandoned you. If you cry once more, I shall sever your tongue." He immediately panicked. I want my mother. Return my mother to me." The heart-wrenching cries of a young boy pierced the air, snapping me back to reality. As I beheld the 4-year-old Mo Yun, seated on the ground, kicking his legs with a tear-streaked, crimson face, I finally realized that I had been reborn. "Your Highness, please do not trouble the Empress. I have prepared a tiger head pillow for you. Would you care to see it? Get away, you wretched girl." Mo Yun, filled with stubbornness, reached out to claw at Chun-Shi's face. Unable to evade in time, a line of blood marred her cheek. With tears welling in her eyes, she felt wronged yet continued to appease him. "If you do not fancy the tiger head pillow, I have a 9-link puzzle. Your Highness is clever enough to solve it." Chun-Shi extended her arms to lift Mo Yun, but to her surprise, he bit down hard on her wrist. "Enough." I slammed my palm on the table, causing Mo Yun to tremble in fear and cautiously raise his gaze to gauge my expression. Meeting my fierce stare, he let out a wail and began to cry once more. "The Empress has been gone for a year. Do you not understand? She does not want you anymore. If you dare to cry again, I shall have your tongue cut out." His cries abruptly ceased, and after a moment of dumbfounded silence, he shouted at me, "You liar! I do not believe you. My mother would never abandon me." Wiping his tears, Mo Yun fled from the room. Just as Chun-Shi intended to pursue him, I called out sharply to halt her. "Your Highness, the crown prince is still young. He can be reasoned with. Do not let your temper flare." Since the Empress's departure, Mo Yun had caused quite the ruckus every day. In my previous life, I had tried every means to soothe him, presenting him with all manner of delightful distractions, yet he would scarcely glance at them, persistently crying out for his mother. I had no choice but to deceive him, telling him that the Empress was unable to return for a while due to her own reasons. "You must be more understanding. When you grow up and ascend to the throne, perhaps she will return." From that day forth, he ceased his wailing and began to heed my guidance. I, sympathizing with his plight of lacking a mother by his side, tended to him with utmost care day after day. Gradually, Mo Yun ceased to mention the Empress, and his address for me transformed from consort to mother. He exhibited respect and filial piety as though he regarded me as his true mother. The Emperor, recognizing my efforts, albeit unrecognized, honored me with the title of Empress. To elevate him to the throne, I shed my previously indifferent demeanor and actively engaged in the palace intrigues. I eliminated the favored consort's son and negotiated with the ministers, ultimately securing his victory in the succession struggle. However, to my astonishment, the Empress returned unexpectedly. Upon learning of this, the newly crowned Emperor Mo Yun immediately imprisoned me in the dungeon. "Thank you for raising me. Without you, I truly would not have been able to sit upon this dragon throne." His eyes, filled with venom, looked down upon me with scorn. "For all these years, I have called you mother, and you have profited from it. Now that my true mother has returned, you, the impostor, may as well perish. Do not look at me with such disdain. Enduring hardships and eliminating threats, these were all lessons you learned from me." He framed me for an affair with the guards, using the pretext of chaos in the harem to strip me naked and parade me through the streets. Amidst the barrage of insults, I bit my tongue and took my own life. The very tactics I had imparted to him ultimately became the dagger that led to my demise. I closed my eyes, weariness weighing heavily upon my brow. From this day forth, he may do as he pleases. Should he cry himself to death, none shall intervene. Chun-Shi paused in her ministrations. "What shall we do about the Emperor?" A cold smile crept into my heart. An empress who absconds without a word, abandoning her own son, can only be a stain upon the royal lineage. I am curious to see whom he shall rely upon in the harem without my presence.
2.
Mo Yun, noticing the absence of any servant for a considerable time, eventually returned, dejected. He no longer cried but was instead filled with a simmering resentment. When dinner time arrived, the maid responsible for Mo Yun reported, "Your Highness, the Crown Prince refuses to eat and has even overturned his meal." I leisurely finished my meal, and after She assisted me in rinsing my mouth, I said, "Let us go and see. Crown Prince, please take at least a bite, otherwise you shall not sleep well tonight." Mo Yun sat sulking in a chair, swinging his legs. The little maid knelt before him, towering over him by a head. "I will not eat. Let me starve. I want to see how you will explain this to Father Emperor." A wicked grin spread across his face, his eyes glinting with unrestrained malice. "If you do not eat, then have everything removed." The little maid quickly knelt and bowed as I entered.
Montag Yun,
In a fit of rage, hurled a pair of chopsticks at me. As I sidestepped to avoid them, he glared at me in indignation. "You wretched woman, meddling in my affairs." She gasped, "Crown Prince, who taught you such words?" Mo Yun shrugged off her hand, exclaiming, "My mother said that only she is the rightful wife of Father Emperor. You all are but concubines, and concubines are nothing but wretches." How ironic that the Empress, who preached equality to the world, harbored such thoughts. I regarded the table laden with dishes, my expression darkening. "From now on, only one dish shall be served at each meal. If you do not eat, it will be saved for the next meal, until you are willing to eat. You maidservants, only Kai Zhu shall remain to serve, the rest shall follow Shi's arrangements." With that, I disregarded Mo Yun's tantrum and turned to leave. The next morning, having just finished my grooming, the chief eunuch by the emperor's side came to summon me. "Your Highness, the emperor wishes to see you." Upon arriving at the study, I bowed respectfully. The emperor did not lift his gaze, replying coolly before returning to his work. Understanding my place, I stepped forward to grind ink, already grasping the situation at hand. After a lengthy silence, the emperor finally set down his brush. "How has Mo Yun been in your palace lately?" I bit my lip, revealing a troubled expression. "Your Highness, the Crown Prince has not been well of late." The emperor's brow furrowed slightly, gesturing for me to continue. "Mo Yun has refused to eat for several days, constantly crying and clamoring to return to Kunning Palace, even insisting on leaving with the Empress. I truly have no means to manage him." My voice dwindled as I mentioned the Empress, and the Emperor's demeanor shifted dramatically. I hastily knelt to plead for forgiveness. Before the Empress departed, she left behind a letter. She stated that she was an infiltrator, and her mission here was to win over the Emperor. Having achieved her objective upon becoming Empress and giving birth to a son, she felt her task complete. Furthermore, she claimed that it was the Emperor who first broke the vow of a lifelong, exclusive bond. With 3,000 women in the harem, there was no place for her, and thus she could only return to her original world. Following the Empress's disappearance, the Emperor had searched the palace frantically, even issuing a nationwide bounty. Yet she seemed to have vanished without a trace. Since then, the term Empress had become a forbidden word within the palace. I cannot believe that at such a tender age, he has forgotten his surname. You and Grand Tutor Gua must diligently teach him, should you fail. He shall no longer be considered my son. I concealed my astonishment, suppressing my gaze. The Emperor had appointed the esteemed scholar Gua Ji-chun as Mo Yun's tutor, indicating that I had underestimated his significance in the Emperor's heart. Exiting the study, she supported my arm. "Your Highness, is there something to rejoice about?" Since that person departed, the Emperor had not set foot in the harem again. All these years, the palace had only one prince and 2 princesses. I sighed. The Emperor's favor for Mo Yun ultimately stemmed from the scarcity of children in the palace. "Come, let us go visit the favored consort." 3. In the hall of abundant splendor, the once resplendent and graceful daughter of the General of the North now resembled a dying elder, devoid of any vitality. "What do you want?" she spat. "Come to see if I am dead or alive." With that, consort and coughed into her handkerchief. "Your Highness, why speak such morose words? The harem has been without leadership for years. I have been eagerly awaiting your recovery." I turned my gaze to the luminous pearl resting upon the Wangwali table. If my memory serves me right, This pearl was a gift from the emperor to the empress, later reclaimed when she became pregnant, fearing the darkness at night. At that time, the favored consort had become pregnant before the empress, but tragically lost the child at 7 months. Half a year later, the empress gave birth to Mo Yun, solidifying her position, while the favored concubine languished in despair over the loss of her child, leading her to a state of decline. The individual before me was undeniably a formidable player in the palace intrigues. She astutely discerned the implications behind my words. The empress was in good health. Merely having slipped momentarily, how could she have suffered a miscarriage so suddenly? I feigned wiping away tears with my handkerchief. Had that child been born, it would have been the same age as the first prince. If the struggle between the concubine and the empress defined the first half of their lives, then the latter half would be characterized by my own conflict with the concubine. The secrets between them had come to light during my previous life when the concubine was exiled to the cold palace, a discovery I stumbled upon. Indeed, the concubine's miscarriage was orchestrated by the empress. That time-traveling woman appeared to be a delicate flower, seemingly indifferent to worldly affairs, yet wielded ruthless tactics. The concubine scrutinized me, observing every subtle expression on my face. "Rong Fei, what are your true intentions?" I offered a slight smile. "Your Highness, please see clearly. I harbor no ill will. After all, that individual has voluntarily abdicated. By all accounts, you have emerged victorious." There was no point in further discussion. I believed she would soon come to understand. The palace staff, adhering to my instructions, ceased their unconditional obedience towards Mo Yun. On the first day of class, Gua Taifu overslept until the sun was high in the sky. I instructed a young eunuch to carry the still-sleeping Mo Yun to the classroom. Gua Taifu patiently attempted to rouse him, but Mo Yun, in a fit of temper, accused Gua Taifu of overstepping his bounds and demanded that the eunuch punish him. I amused myself with the newly delivered lark from the Naiwafu, listening to the report from Kaiju. If the first lesson could not be properly managed, future discipline would be even more challenging. The empress was correct. Gua Taifu had struck the first prince 10 times, and the first prince went to complain to the emperor, who refused to see him. I set down the bird feed, and Chuanqi approached to cleanse my hands. "Do not concern yourself with him. Let him do as he wishes." 10 days later, Gua Taifu approached me, looking defeated. "The first prince is unruly. Your Highness must not indulge him any longer." I twisted my handkerchief, lowering my voice. "This may prove somewhat difficult." Gua Taifu was not unaware. The first prince was the emperor's only bloodline. Years ago, when Mo Yun was just learning to walk, he accidentally knocked down a eunuch, causing the empress to weep, and the emperor immediately ordered the man to be executed. As it stands, the only person capable of keeping Mo Yun in check within the palace is the emperor himself. Gua Taifu slapped his thigh in exasperation. "What shall we do? At this rate, the first prince will never amount to anything." I sighed softly, my gaze distant. By the age of the late emperor, the harem had already birthed 7 princes and 9 princesses. Now the emperor has only Mo Yun. His Majesty values Mo Yun greatly. I implore you, Taifu, to be understanding. After a prolonged silence, Gua Taifu finally spoke. Days later, a group of officials submitted a petition urging the emperor to depose the empress and restart the selection process for new consorts, hoping to expand the royal lineage. The emperor suppressed the matter of deposing the empress, but approved the resumption of the selection. Meanwhile, concubine and finally emerged from the Fanghua Palace. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye, and concubine and regained the emperor's favor, her prominence undiminished. Witnessing the palace, maids calling the emperor away yet again, Mo Yun could hardly contain his bitterness. I casually adjusted my hair, pretending to be nonchalant. "Concubine, you are already a month pregnant. Be cautious not to provoke your father's ire." His eyes widened suddenly, a look of confusion crossing his face. Later that evening, as I prepared to retire for the night, Chuanqi rushed in with alarming news. "Your Highness, it is terrible. The first prince has pushed concubine and down the steps, and she has miscarried." Upon my arrival at the Fanghua Palace, Missouri Yun was kneeling in the courtyard as punishment, while the other concubines stood anxiously, fearful of the unfolding events. At that moment, the conversation between concubine and the emperor echoed through the air. "They have harmed me so. Does the emperor not intend to deliver justice?" Mo Yun did not intend it. He was merely being mischievous. The muffled sounds of crying resonated from within the palace, and I stepped forward to scold Yun loudly. It is your fault that concubine and lost her child. Kneeling here serves no purpose. Hurry and apologize to her. He stubbornly held his ground, refusing to blink. I did nothing wrong. Why should I admit fault? It is this vixen who seduced my father. Had it not been for her, my mother would not have left. She deserves to die, and so do you. Yun pointed accusingly at everyone behind me. All of you women in the harem deserve to die. Unworthy child. The emperor stood at the steps, his eyes reddened with fury. She, Yen, abandoned us without a word. And you expect me to remain loyal to her for a lifetime? Yun fell silent, frightened, but the emperor's wrath remained unquenched. Yen, arrogant and disrespectful, consumed by jealousy. From this day forth, I strip you of your title as empress. If you wish to abandon me and join your mother, then you shall not remain in the palace. I have decided to revoke Yun's royal surname, renaming him Yun, and he shall be demoted to a commoner, exiled from the palace. Father, I am only 4 years old. The palace is my home. If you cast me out, where can I go? Yun crawled to the emperor's feet, crying as if he could not catch his breath. I promise my mother to watch over you. I cannot leave. Father, if you cast me out, do you not fear my mother will be heartbroken? You speak of your mother. She is all that occupies your heart. Have you ever regarded me as your father? She abandoned us without a word, yet you still cling to the hope of her return. I tell you, she will not return. Not ever. No, I do not believe it. My mother will definitely come back. Yun's cries suddenly escalated, his high-pitched voice piercing my eardrums. The emperor, disturbed by the commotion, waved his hand dismissively, signaling several eunuchs to drag him away. Yun struggled fiercely, biting and clawing, and the eunuchs found it difficult to approach him. Steward Gao discreetly glanced at the emperor, noting his lack of any sympathy, and then nodded to the 2 young eunuchs. The young eunuchs swiftly understood, raising their hands to deliver a swift blow to Yun's neck, rendering him unconscious. Yun was sent overnight to Liani Garden, and considering his tender age, the emperor assigned 2 young eunuchs to attend to his needs. 2 months later, new consorts entered the palace. The emperor finally ceased to remain faithful to Yen, frequently visiting the harem. The new consorts dazzled with their various talents, dancing under the moonlight and playing the chine in the imperial garden, reviving the palace's vibrancy. Rome Fei certainly possessed remarkable skills. With just a minor maneuver, she had expelled this child from the palace. As autumn approached, the weather in the capital turned crisp, and concubine and invited me to stroll through the imperial garden. No matter my schemes, without your cooperation, nothing can come to fruition. Yen poisoned the night pearl, causing me to miscarry, yet her son is equally malicious. She scoffed. I wonder if she anticipated her son's fate before she departed. Concubine and turned to regard me. You are too soft-hearted, I say. Simply eliminate him. Keeping him will only lead to future calamities. I lowered my gaze. Killing him so easily lacks meaning. Honing one's skill with a knife brings true pain. Abandoned by his birth mother and cast out by his father, I awaited the return of the empress to see if he still desired her. Concubine and regarded me with curiosity. You have no grievances with the empress. She has already left. So why do you wish to bring ruin upon the first prince? I remained unflinching. I harbor no ulterior motives. I merely seek to defend the empress's honor. She recognized my insincerity, muttering a dismissal before returning to the Fonghua Palace. Time passed swiftly, and a decade slipped by in an instant. During this period, princes and princesses were born in succession within the palace. 9 years ago, after concubine and bore a son, she found herself pregnant again that summer. The heat was unbearable, and she lost her appetite, causing her to grow noticeably thinner. The emperor, concerned for her well-being, took the harem to Liani Garden to escape the summer heat. After packing their belongings, the sun had already set. Chuanxi implored me to take a walk, and as I approached the lotus pond, I witnessed 3 young eunuchs bullying a small, frail child. Chuanxi stepped forward, about to admonish them, but I raised my hand to stop her. How dare you claim to be a prince? The current emperor bears the surname Liu. While what is yours? If he is a prince, then I am a lord. A mere bastard, cast out from the palace, dares to flaunt his power before me. Watch as I beat you to death. Kill him, accuse him of theft. Were it not for him, I would not have been dispatched to this desolate place. Had it not been for him, I would have long since ascended to the position of chief steward. The three of them unleashed a flurry of blows upon Mo Yun, who curled up in a ball, clutching a white steamed bun tightly in his hands. After observing the spectacle for a while, I finally bellowed, "Cease this at once." The young eunuchs, upon seeing me, fell to their knees, bowing repeatedly. I paid them no heed, striding towards Mo Yun. He slowly raised his head, a myriad of emotions flickering in his eyes, ultimately coalescing into two streams of hot tears. "Mother, I miss you so much." I brought Mo Yun back to the courtyard. Gazing at the table laden with dishes, he devoured his meal ravenously, as if he had not eaten in ages. I regarded him silently. Clad in simple garments, despite being 14, he appeared no taller than a 10-year-old boy. "Eat slowly, there's no one here to snatch your food." He offered me a sheepish smile before turning back to seize another meat bun. Once he had consumed nearly half of the feast, I instructed someone to clear the table. Clearly still hungry, he looked at me in confusion. "If you eat too much at once, you might suffer from indigestion later. Rest assured, with me here, you shall not go hungry." He lowered his head, lost in thought. I beckoned him closer. "Have you allowed them to bully you for the past decade?" At first, they feared me and dared not be too cruel. But 3 years have passed, and since father has yet to summon me back to the palace, they began withholding food from me. When I grew hungry, I could only resort to stealing from the kitchen. When they discovered this, they would beat me, just as they did today. Mo Yun pouted, tears streaming down his cheeks again. "Lady Rome, I do not wish to remain here any longer. Please take me back to the palace. I promise to obey you." I turned my gaze away. "It is not that I do not wish to take you back. You caused great calamity due to your mother. Though 10 years have passed, the position remains vacant, and your father still harbors resentment towards your mother. What would you have me do? I was young and foolish then, but now I have grown." Mo Yun hesitated for a moment, as if steeling himself for a resolution. "A woman who abandons her husband and children does not deserve to be a mother. Father should have long since divorced her. It is she who has brought me to this state. Should I see her, I shall not spare her." Mo Yun's eyes scrutinized my reaction intently. Did he truly hate the Empress? I sensed some resentment, yet it was insufficient. He still needed to endure more hardship. I sighed, "Prepare yourself. When the time is right, I shall arrange for you to meet the Emperor. Whether you return or not depends entirely on you." 5 days later, the noble consort, in a fit of whimsy, hosted a banquet on a small island in the lake, inviting all the ladies of the harem. The Emperor, in high spirits, indulged in copious amounts of plum wine. As the gathering dispersed, the Emperor accidentally slipped, losing his balance, and a young eunuch rushed to his aid. The Emperor fell upon him, and the eunuch emitted a muffled groan. Steadying himself, the Emperor spoke with a calm, yet warm tone. "You possess quite the presence of mind. What is your name? And where do you serve?" Mo Yun slowly lifted his head, and upon seeing him, the Emperor's brows knitted tightly. "Father, for these past 10 years, I have constantly worried about you. In my youth, I did not comprehend right from wrong, and I caused you great sorrow. Mo Yun has recognized his faults. To see you again today is a blessing beyond measure. It is regrettable that I cannot fulfill my filial duties openly. I implore you, dear father, to take care of your health." After bowing solemnly, Mo Yun concluded his speech. The Emperor remained silent, merely observing him. The garden fell into a hushed stillness, and Lady Anne exchanged a glance with me, to which I subtly nodded, assuring her there could be no lingering animosity between father and son. Besides, Mo Yun had acknowledged his mistakes. Surely the Emperor would forgive him. He was responsible for your miscarriage. At that time, I had not yet become a mother. Yet I had begun to comprehend Mo Yun's past thoughts. Lady Anne gently caressed her pregnant belly, smiling softly. "A royal heir cannot be left to roam outside. I believe Mo Yun can become a worthy elder brother." "Thank you, noble consort. Thank you, noble consort." Mo Yun repeatedly bowed, and the Emperor sighed deeply. "Very well. When you leave, you shall accompany us back to the palace." The gathering at Lieni Garden continued until the onset of autumn. Shortly after returning to the palace, Lady Anne successfully gave birth to a baby girl. The Emperor's affection for Lady Anne grew ever stronger, showering her with lavish gifts. Yet, he remained silent regarding the vacant position. At this juncture, news arrived from the north. The noble consort's brother had led 1,000 men to launch a night raid on the Xiongnu camp, successfully slaying their leader and retreating unscathed. Seizing the opportunity, the general of the north pursued them, causing the Xiongnu to collapse into disarray. Lady An rejoiced, believing her ascent was imminent, yet I doused her enthusiasm with cold water. The general's achievements overshadow his lord. You must tread carefully. I laid out the evidence I had gathered before her, and her face turned ashen. In my previous life, this was the moment when Lady An and I were embroiled in a fierce struggle. The emperor had long been wary of the general's house. He had utilized me to cast suspicion upon the general of the north. The general's family faced extermination, and Lady An's second son fell ill with a strange malady, passing away shortly thereafter, leading to Lady An's downfall. In this life, Lady An and I had not clashed directly. The emperor, undoubtedly unwilling to relent, would seek to deal with the general's house. I bore him children, yet the emperor's heart was so ruthless. I slid a small porcelain vial towards her. Though the second prince is young, he has a valiant and battle-hardened grandfather. The throne belongs to him alone. Tears brimmed in Lady An's eyes as she looked at me in disbelief. I maintained my composure, performing a respectful bow before departing. On the way back, Chuanxi wore a worried expression. Do you truly think the noble consort will? I chuckled softly. She has always harbored resentment towards him. In a life-or-death crisis, she will undoubtedly make the most prudent choice. My foresight proved accurate. Half a month later, the general of the north fell into an ambush on his way back to the capital, resulting in his death, and the whereabouts of his heir became unknown. During this time, my father, leading the civil officials, once again petitioned the emperor to establish a crown prince without delay. With Lady An's maternal family lost, the emperor finally relented, issuing a decree to elevate Lady An to empress and appoint the second prince as crown prince. Upon hearing this news, Mo Yun's countenance turned pale. Although he no longer needed to worry about food and clothing upon returning to the palace, his situation remained precarious, and he endured considerable hardship. The princes and princesses of the harem, seeing him without a mother, subjected him to endless ridicule. The crown prince, upon discovering the past between Wan Yuyen and the empress, made it his first order of business to target Mo Yun. Mo Yun, battered and bruised by him, left me fearful that the crown prince would ultimately harm the pet I had nurtured, so I secretly provided him with medicine on several occasions. One day when I went to visit him, he blocked my path. Why do they treat me this way? Is it merely because I lack a mother? Without a moment's hesitation, I replied, indeed, it is because of Wan Yuyen. Had she not abandoned you and fled, the position of crown prince would surely have been yours. Mo Yun paused in surprise, then stubbornly pressed on. What must I do to bring her back? She is not of this world. If you wish to have her return. I pondered for a moment, then smirked slightly. Perhaps if you were to die, she would come back. With the emperor reinstating the empress, a new candidate for the crown prince emerged. Should even his biological son perish, would Wan Yuyen's mission not be deemed a failure? In the depths of my intuition, I felt that if something were to happen to Mo Yun, she would undoubtedly return. Mo Yun gasped sharply, and after a moment, as if having made a decision, he lowered his head. 2 days later, I was sipping tea in Fingy Palace when a palace maid rushed in, panic-stricken. Your Highness, something terrible has happened. The eldest prince has jumped into the river. The empress cast me a glance before calmly instructing the palace attendants to rescue him. After a stick of incense had burned, Mo Yun was pulled to safety. The imperial physician, after a thorough examination, confirmed that he was unharmed. On the golden silk Nanmu bed, Mo Yun lay in a deep, unconscious state, prompting the emperor to pay a visit. Just as he was about to depart, a sudden voice pierced the air. Lu Juanxi, is this how you care for my son? Indeed, Wan Yuyen had returned. Observing the scene before me, a smile blossomed in my eyes. The grand performance was finally set to begin. You dare return? Wan Yuyen strode forward, her gaze filled with resentment directed at the emperor. If I do not come back, Yuner will be doomed by your hand. On the bed, Mo Yun appeared ensnared by nightmares, repeatedly calling for his mother. Wan Yuyen's expression softened as she tenderly caressed Mo Yun's face. Fear not, my child, for your mother has returned. The injustices you have suffered shall be repaid 1,000-fold. Rising from her seat, she raised her hand to strike the empress. The crown prince, standing beside the empress, was swift to seize her wrist, only to retaliate with a slap across her face. Wang Yuyan covered her cheek, her voice laced with fury.
How dare you?
Do you know who I am? The second prince, exuding an intimidating presence, stepped forward. As the crown prince, I wish to inquire who you are to lay a hand on the empress. The empress? She is the empress, but what am I? Her eyes turned to the emperor, laden with accusation. You abandoned both me and Mo Yun for 13 years. What justification do you have to question me? The Great Way does not require a mother of the nation who is so irresponsible. Nor do I need a wife who has forsaken her vows. With a violent flourish of his sleeve, the emperor turned and strode away. You are perhaps unaware, but 11 years ago, the emperor decreed your deposition as empress. You are now merely a commoner. Given your status as Mo Yun's mother, since you have returned, you may stay in the palace for a few days. The empress wore a victorious smile. In a few days, I shall personally escort you out of the palace. At this moment, Wang Yuyan grasped the gravity of her situation. Lacking a powerful maternal family, should she lose even the favor she once enjoyed, she would truly be rendered powerless. The emperor did not issue any orders regarding her fate, so the empress confined her to the Yulan Palace adjacent to the Cold Palace. During this time, Wang Yuyan repeatedly demanded to see the emperor, but the empress thwarted her at every turn. In desperation, she bribed a young eunuch to gain access to the Yangxin Hall. That night, a palace maid on duty reported that the emperor had summoned water twice. When Mo Yun awakened, he found only me by his side, and a fleeting look of despondency crossed his face. Your mother has returned, but she is currently preoccupied. Just a few days later, Wang Yuyan had changed her name and identity, becoming the favored consort Jing. Mo Yun struggled to seek her out, but I restrained him upon the bed. Your foremost priority is to recuperate. There is ample time ahead, and she cannot leave at once. You surely do not wish for her to see you in such a state, filled with sorrow. A smile graced Mo Yun's face as he accepted the medicinal bowl from my hands and drank it down. I exchanged a glance with Chunchi, who quietly exited the hall to convey news to the empress. The time for action had come. When the first snow blanketed the capital, Mo Yun's health had remarkably improved. He eagerly awaited Wang Yuyan's visit, yet the news that arrived was that consort Jing was with child. As I transcribed Buddhist scriptures, Mo Yun paced restlessly around me. My patience waned, and I irritably tossed down my brush. Do you not comprehend? The one within the palace is not Wang Yuyan, but consort Jing. She is pregnant with the dragon heir. Your mother has once again forsaken you. Uncharacteristically, he did not contest my words, but instead revealed a glimmer of malice in his gaze. The following day, as Chunchi assisted me in rising, she reported, the first prince visited consort Jing and did not return until dawn. What was his demeanor? I inquired. He appeared quite displeased, returning to smash a vase in the room. A cold smirk crept across my face. The emperor increasingly favored visiting the inner palace, even indulging in frivolities at consort Jing's residence during the midday hours. At last, one fateful day, the emperor coughed up blood during the morning court session and subsequently fainted. The imperial physicians were at their wits' end. In that moment, Mo Yun stepped forward. I accuse consort Jing of plotting to harm the emperor. Her heart is deserving of punishment. The concubines attending the emperor's illness collectively gasped in horror. Wang Yuyan's voice trembled slightly with panic. Yunar, what nonsense are you spouting? Your father is ill. How could I be involved? The empress's piercing gaze shot toward her, beads of cold sweat forming on her brow. Speak in detail, she commanded, pointing at Mo Yun. Consort Jing, in her desperation to bear a dragon son, resorted to using aphrodisiacs and hallucinogenic powders to entice the emperor. Is this not an act of treachery against the emperor? Lu Mo Yun, I am your mother.
Tell me,
was it the empress who threatened you into saying this?
was it?
Mo Yun's eyes were distant, refusing to meet hers. No one has ever compelled me. My actions stem solely from my own volition. You ungrateful wretch. I should never have borne you. Mo Yun lowered his head, a self-deprecating smile appearing. I would rather you had never given birth to me. Because of you, I have endured endless suffering in the palace. To bring you back, I risked my life. And what of you? You do not even glance my way, only desiring to be empress, your eyes fixed solely on wealth and splendor. You harbor no genuine affection for me or the emperor. I cleared my throat. Whether the first prince speaks the truth can be easily ascertained through a search. The empress immediately dispatched individuals to search the palace, and after a short while, the chief eunuch presented the findings. Among the items discovered were not only the aphrodisiac and hallucinogenic powders, but also a small porcelain vial. The physician tasted a drop, and his pupils trembled in shock. Report to the empress. This is the poison that afflicted the emperor. The poison, subtle in nature, seeped into the bones and was undetectable when mixed with food. Over time, the victim would unknowingly perish in their sleep. Wang Yuyan finally faltered, seizing the porcelain vial to inspect it. No, this is not mine. I used the aphrodisiac and hallucinogenic powders, but they are not lethal. Someone has framed me. At this moment, Mo Yun began to grasp the implications. His brow furrowed in confusion. However, it was too late. The empress pronounced with a heavy voice, "Consort Jing has conspired to harm the emperor. She shall be imprisoned in the heavenly prison." The imperial physicians exhausted every remedy, yet the emperor ultimately succumbed, passing away in his sleep before the spring festival. On the day the crown prince ascended the throne, Mo Yun was found hanged in his chamber. Simultaneously, Wang Yuyan perished in the heavenly prison. All was settled. Within the Sinang palace, the empress dowager hosted a banquet in my honor. At the table, she solemnly raised her cup to me. "You saved me. You saved my entire family. I shall fulfill my promise and release you from the palace. Then, may we part ways without a future meeting." I downed the wine in my cup. Thereafter, I traveled to the ends of the earth, beholding the splendor of the world. Finally, I did not squander the second chance at life. The end. Thank you for listening, and until we meet again in the next tale.